Hey everybody, my name's Grayson and I'm our high school director here, and I'm super excited about today. We've got a really awesome Sunday planned for you, but I want to talk about next Sunday first. It's Father's Day, and so we're not going to be meeting for a live stream or for small groups. We want to give you as much time as possible to spend with the fathers in your life. Now, for today, it's going to look a little bit different, just like last week did. We're going to be continuing the conversation we started called More Than a Hashtag. If you remember last week, our friend Erica came in and gave a really great message about why race is important. She reminded us that each and every one of us, despite our differences, are made perfectly in God's image. And so we were able to have conversations about race, a subject that can be awkward or make us feel some tension. And we were able to have good conversations. We're continuing that conversation this week, but here's how it's going to be different. Middle schoolers and high schoolers, you guys are actually going to be split up. And so middle schoolers, you're going to stay here on YouTube and you're going to be hearing from Joe Lowry. While high school students, you're going to jump right now into your Zoom small groups and you're going to hear from Matt Neely. Now, both these guys are going to be talking about justice. What does justice look like? Why is it important? And what does God have to say about justice? Now, this is a really awesome opportunity for us to listen well and to learn a lot. And so right now is a good opportunity, high schoolers, to go ahead and jump into those small groups. Middle schoolers, buckle up because these are going to be really, really great conversations.
Hey Transit, as you might know or probably heard, my name is Joe and we are in week 2 of a series that we're calling More Than a Hashtag. Now stop me if you've heard this one before. I pledge allegiance to the, yeah, you already know where I'm going with this. It's the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Now I did a little bit of mental math, and over the course of our lifetimes, we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance more than 2,200 times. And anytime you say something that often, it stops losing its meaning after a while. Now, I don't know about you, but I had never really thought about what it meant. I learned it when I was in kindergarten, and at the time, I was just happy that I could get through it all in one sentence, even though if I was really pronouncing the word indivisible as invisible. You know, think about how that changes the meaning. But today I want to focus on one little word close to the end. We probably speed right past it because we're already thinking about our pop quiz in second block, or maybe what we're having for lunch or who we're having lunch with. And that is the word justice. Now, if I asked you to define justice, a lot of things would probably come to mind. Things like freedom or liberty or fairness. And I think all of those are probably wrapped up in what justice is. But I wanted to give you guys what the actual dictionary definition of justice is. And when I looked it up in the dictionary, the actual definition of justice was the act of being just. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. So I went and then looked up what the word just means. And it says that the word just means behaving according to what is morally right. So being just is behaving according to what is morally right. Now, just is one of the defining characteristics of God. And so anytime that we define just, we have to take a look at how God is and adjust our definition towards that. If you were here last week, you heard Erica Billy absolutely crush it on the topic of racism. And what she taught us was that we are all created in the image of God, which means we're all valuable to God. And not just valuable, but like on a scale of 1 to 100, to God, we're all 100s, which means He wants us to treat others as hundreds as well. And so that means that we're going to have to define our definition of justice as the treatment of all people as valuable to God. So justice is the treatment of all people as valuable to God. And that's where the hard part comes in. Because even though we're all made in the image of God, we are all different. And believe me, that's a good thing. Life would be so boring right now if we were all alike. But it means we have different likes and different dislikes, and it means we all experience the world in different ways. How I experience the world is different than how you experience the world. And how you experience the world is different than how someone in Seattle experiences the world. And how someone in Seattle experiences the world is different than how someone in China experiences the world. And again, this is all stuff that Erica talked about last week. What do we do, though, when the world doesn't treat everyone as equally valuable? Because it's like NBA 2K out there. We've all got different ratings according to the world. And some people are like 97s, your LeBrons, your Kawhis out there. And, some people are treated as 87s. Mike Conley, like still very valuable. Some people are 78s. Some people are 59s. And at its heart, that's what racism is treating people like they're less valuable. And we've seen examples in the past couple of weeks about this happening, but really, this is something that's happened over the last couple of weeks, months, years, decades, centuries, where people have been damaged and hurt and killed because of the color of their skin and where they're from. And we can all agree, like, that's wrong, that's racist, that's bad. But what about something that hits a little bit closer to home? Like when we make a statement about one person that's like a blanket statement about everybody in that group, like all black people are urban, or Chinese people cause coronavirus, or people from the deep south are stupid, or all policemen are evil. So how do we go about making sure that everyone experiences justice the same way? In other words, how do we make sure that justice, being treated as valuable to God, is something that all people that experience? Because it's easy to forget that people matter to God. Now, we started out today with the Pledge of Allegiance, something that you guys have heard a lot of and probably are overly familiar with. And I actually want to talk about something that Jesus said that you guys have probably heard a lot and are overly familiar with. But in the gospel according to Mark, the story of Jesus' life that was given to us by Mark, Jesus is getting asked a whole bunch of questions. And one of the questions that Jesus gets is about what the most valuable, what the most important commandment is. And to ask Jesus what the most important commandment is kind of like asking someone what the most important part of a car is. See, at the time they had 10 really big commandments, the 10 Commandments. You've probably heard them or heard of them. And they were all considered unbreakable. So Jesus answers like this. He says, the most important commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And this is exactly what they were expecting. It's with a car, every part is important if you want the car to run well. But if you don't have an engine, your car ain't going anywhere. And so loving God was kind of like the engine of their faith. Then Jesus takes something else that they had probably heard before and puts it in a term that they had probably never, ever thought about before. And Jesus says, the other most important commandment, like this is equally as important, is love your neighbor as yourself. And this would have been crazy for that time and place, because in that time and place, if you didn't look out for number one first, you died. It was that kind of society. And this is probably something that you guys have heard before as well. Love your neighbor as yourself. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. Obey the golden rule. All kind of the same thing. And I'm sure for a lot of our lives, we've taken it as, we should be nice to each other. But Jesus was more than nice to people. You see, Jesus listened to people. Jesus talked to people. He heard their story. He got to know them. And in every case, there was something that they needed from Jesus. They needed to be healed. Someone they loved needed to be healed. They needed Jesus' advice. And Jesus could have snapped his fingers and just said, done, to each one of those things, like the genie in Aladdin. You're blind? Now you can see. You can't walk? Hey, go take a couple of laps around the pool. Oh, your brother's dead? Now he's not. And by the way, tell him to shower, because whoo! But Jesus didn't do that. Jesus didn't do that because Jesus knew that fixing their problems wouldn't have fixed their problems. They needed to know that they were valuable to Jesus and valuable to God. And so Jesus listened to them. He got to know them. He ignored their race. He ignored where they were from, and he got to know them as people. And in doing that, Jesus lived out what it means to love your neighbor. Jesus demonstrated what it means to be just to people. Jesus demonstrated what it means to treat others as valuable to God. Something we've said a lot around here, and you may have heard it before, is that we need to be just like Jesus. And I think that's absolutely true, but I want to spin it just a little bit this week. You see, Jesus was just. He acted justly. He treated people with justice. And we need to be just. We need to act justly. We need to treat others with justice. And so we need to be just like Jesus. We need to be just, like Jesus. And that's our bottom line today. That's what we want you guys walking away with. We want you remembering. Our bottom line, be just, like Jesus. So how do we go about doing that? I know for a lot of you, you're probably frustrated right now because it feels like with everything going on in the world, the only thing that you can really do is post to Instagram because you can't drive, you can't go protest, you can't vote. But actually, you are valuable to God. And because you're valuable to God, you have the ability to show other people that you're valuable to God. So there are lots of things that we can do now to show other people that they are valuable to God. And that starts with a self-check. Some of you need to hear that you are valuable to God. You're good at loving your neighbor. You need to love yourself the way that you love your neighbor. Others of us, we need to be reminded that we need to be just to the people in our lives. You know, are we being just to our family? You know, when we walk into a room, does our family run away because they're afraid of how we're going to treat us? Are we being just to our friends? Are we being just to the people we meet online? Or would we still use that word if we were meeting them face to face? Would we still type out that phrase if they were right in front of us? So the first thing that we need to do is a self-check. The second thing that we need to do is stand up. There are going to be times where people are not being treated as valuable to God, and those are the times that we need to stand up and tell people that all people are valuable to God. And you don't have to say, all people are valuable to God, although that's true. You may start by associating yourself with the people that you feel are treated unjustly. You know, tell your friends, like, hey, actually, I've got a friend who's handicapped and they're pretty cool. Or, you know, I mess up on a test from time to time, so I can be not smart from time to time too. But you have to stand up. The third thing that we can do is stand down. You know, we all get angry. We all want to speak out in anger. But when we speak out in anger, we're just making sure that the people that we're speaking to aren't going to listen to us when we've actually got something that they need to hear. So self-check, stand up, stand down, be respectful. When we don't respect the things that belong to other people, we're not acting justly. And so if we're destroying public property, if we're looting businesses, if we're tagging things with graffiti in public, the only thing that we're doing is making sure that the people that are out there really are afraid of us. And that's not helping anybody. And finally, we need to diversify. You know, we need to know and be friends with people who don't look like us, because the only way that we're going to understand how other people see the world is by being around people who are different than us. So that's how we are to be just, like Jesus. Self-check, stand up, stand down, be respectful, and diversify. You are valuable to God. Matter of fact, you are so valuable to God that He went out of His way to make sure that His Son died to show you how valuable you are. So we need to be just like Jesus, because Jesus gave up His life so you would understand how valuable you are to God. So as you guys are heading back to small group today, I want you to be thinking about this question. I want you to be thinking about what are some situations where you might have to stand up for someone else. What are some situations where you might have to stand up for someone else? But first, let's stop and talk to God, because this is a big issue. Father, we don't always recognize when we're not treating others as valuable to you. But I pray today that you're going to open our eyes, that you're going to help us live out this commandment that Jesus gave us to love others the way that you've loved us. Help us to see other people the way that you see them, to treat everybody as hundreds, Father, and to show the world that there's a better way, that people are worthy of justice. We love you, Father, and ask all this in your Son's name. Amen. All right, guys. Can't wait for you guys to talk about this in your groups.